Okay, so hey y'all. Welcome to AyJay's Therapist Corner. As you can tell, Channy is sitting here.
Hi.
I decided to do it a little different. So each episode, she's going to ask me two questions and kind of from a, how would I want to say this? From a therapist perspective about the different things that you guys may think about. So if you have questions, please understand that I cannot this is not the space to give advice or give life advice. If you need professional help, I will always have links in the description below for you to look for and find a therapist. But this is just a space to kind of clear up some myths and give some ticks, ticks, tricks and tools of the trade. So, Channy, what's question number one?
So, I had been seeing stuff about like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and there was this dialogue that said that CBT was not necessarily something that is efficient for Black people or people of color in their communities. So I wanted to know, like, why is it, or if it really is, if that's the case about CBT. What is CBT really?
Okay, so cognitive behavioral therapy is, I think, the reason people may find that it may not work for Black people because it does confront and interrupt behavior patterns and how you think about things. So, say, I'm trying not to be too descriptive, but pretty much cognitive behavioral therapy literally is what it sounds like. How you think, how you process, and how you deal with certain things. Now, for most Black people, trauma is not really a word that's understood. So a child not having dinner doesn't tonight but has dinner tomorrow but may not have dinner for another 2-3 days doesn't see that as trauma. Or a lot of Black people have the testimony of, I've watched people die in front of me, or I've watched a drug deal in front of me. That's that trauma to them. And so sometimes cognitive behavioral therapy challenges what they've experienced and what you're used to. And so if you don't see that as trauma, or if you don't see that as something that can affect you, cognitive behavioral therapy is a little harder to get into your brain of and altering your way of thinking.
So basically saying like these experiences that you've had, even though other people may call them traumatic, for you because of the way that you've grown up and seen things, that is not traumatic for your experience.
Right.
That makes sense.
Even though it is a traumatic event. Some people going to multiple funerals a year, they get numb to it.
Right.
And so even though it is traumatic, most people don't see it as trauma because that's just how it is in the neighborhood, or that's just how it is. And also, depending on the therapist's approach to it, it's semi-confrontational. So, again, it goes directly into the behavior. It goes directly into, why are you doing that behavior? So if we can get your mind to connect to the behavior, because they always think, well, they say your mind and your behavior are connected. But that's not always the case. Sometimes the behavior is just the behavior. It doesn't have anything to do with what they've experienced and what they've been through. It's just the behavior. And so cognitive behavioral therapy, you do have to decide with each client, is CBT the best approach for them? Sometimes
that
it's
actually
not.
brings me to my next question. How do you decide what methods are best for your client?
Based on their personalities, based on what they tell you, which is why we always say, tell us whatever you're comfortable with, and understand that whatever you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. So if you come in and tell half the story and say, this person assaulted me, but you didn't say how you came up to them and punched them in the face first, like, we can't do anything with that. We can't fully help you process your behaviors and process how to get to the root of, why did you feel like you needed to walk in that room and punch that person? Like, it's kind of based on whatever information you give. So say for you, I wouldn't use CBT, but I also wouldn't use person-centered either. I call person-centered Sinclair from Living Single.
What's that about?
So person-centered is very much, well, so what can I do for you? How would that help you? What would that be like? That is definitely not for Black people. You don't like. That's why
I wouldn't like that.
That's why I said like Sinclair from Living Single. Like, woo woo woo. It's going to be great. Like it's very much like centered around you. Mm-hmm. However, it's not really like confronting or interrupting the behavior pattern or the way of thinking. Yeah. So, for me, most of the time, my approach, it sounds weird, but it's called reality therapy. Mm-hmm. It's basically like expectations versus reality. And the alternate name for it is choice therapy. Like, we all have choices, but we can't control the circumstances.
That's I can understand that. That one makes more sense.
So my approach, in which really works for Black people, is, yeah, that happened to you. Fucking sucks too. However, this was your expectation. Here's your reality. How do we deal with the reality? And how can we allow you to find different and more appropriate ways to deal with your reality? How can you deal with that? Right. That's my approach. Some people use Adlerian theory, which it's semi-confrontational. It's getting very like technical here, but Adlerian is a little bit, but it's kind of like you're being dramatic, so you need to stop that. Like that's
calm down.
Like calm down. Like you're not being rational right now, even though you literally just watched 3 people get shot. Like it's like you're entitled to feel the way you feel. However, you're still being dramatic. So a lot of the theories, I'm just going to be honest, a lot of the theories that we learn as therapists don't work for Black people. Do not. They do not work. Gestalt is too confrontational. Mm-hmm. And that's a whole nother technical way of getting into things. Freud was just trying to make sex make sense.
Yeah.
The id, ego, and superego is just saying, hey, I wanted to have sex with a family member, so let's talk about it.
Gross.
Very much. So part of that does make sense, like your conscious and your subconscious. Okay, cool. However, when it comes to your approach with dealing with clients, you just have to pay attention to, and also depending on their diagnosis helps you figure out their approach as well. Yeah. So someone with bipolar depression, you wouldn't come in confronting them about their depression. You just wouldn't do that. You wouldn't confront them about it. You also wouldn't coddle them, but you don't come in like, well, you're being irrational.
I do actually experience that with like once my therapist finds out that I do have BPD, their approach changes. It's because you can't necessarily go into someone with BPD when they're in their manic high and be like, chill out. If it were that easy.
It was jolting, yeah. It would be jolting. And it can further traumatize the client. So you really just have to pay attention to what they say, what they give you. And even then, no matter what, the longer you stay in therapy, the more you give. So even if you don't give a lot in the beginning, we still can go back and change it because we see the changes. Because if we try something and it's not working for you, we just try something else anyway. It's all trial and error.
I think that's probably what scares people a lot is the fact that it is trial and error. They feel like it's not working. None of this works.
Well, also, that means you're not providing something. That means you need to go intern. Like, you need to U-turn. I love that my therapist told me that, but you need to U-turn and figure out why isn't it working. Because it's not about us. It's not us. We can only go by what you give. And we can only work on and fix what you give. So if you're really sad all the time, don't come and tell us, oh, well, I'm fine. I'm struggling with my job. When in reality, you're going through some shit in your personal life and your job has nothing to do with it. You just have to be open and honest. So if that's not what you're going to do, you don't need to be there.
That makes sense. Yeah. Love that.
But yeah, so if you guys have any more questions like that or have any suggestions of topics you want Channy to ask me about, comment below or send us an email at codeswitchnaturally@gmail.com. And then we also have
we have an Instagram.
Thank you. I don't know why my brain is drawing a blank, y'all, but we have an Instagram.
At Code Switching Pod.
Yes. And so like, comment, share, subscribe. I'm going to try to keep up with these now that I have a way that works. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.